به طه به یاسین به معراج احمد به قدر و به کوثر به رضوان و طوبی به وحی الهی به قرآن جاری به تورات.
To ensure that the religion of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein flow in the veins of all of those who are going to come from my progeny. So it's not just my duty to safeguard my immediate family, my first generation of Muslims. I need to ensure that the religion of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein flow in the veins of all of those who are going to come from my progeny. How will this occur if I'm not affected when my own children begin to step outside the boundary of Islam? How is it possible that I will secure generations to come from my progeny if when my children practice Islam at times and do not practice Islam at others, it doesn't bother me? It doesn't give me a sleepless night when my children don't practice the religion, but it gives me a sleepless night when my child can't find a job. It doesn't give me a sleepless night when my child has a premarital relationship, so long as members of the community don't know about it and my reputation remains intact. But it gives me a sleepless night if I'm about to lose a certain business deal. What am I teaching my child if I remain mute when this individual practices Islam on a part-time basis and is a part-time Muslim? What if I taught this individual, and if my child is going to be a part-time Muslim, what do you think is going to happen to their child? What's going to happen to my grandchildren? If my child, I give him the leniency of moving in and out of this boundary of Islam, this divine boundary that has been set by God, if I allow him to move in and out to a certain degree, don't you think that door is going to open much wider for his children? And how many generations is it going to take before Islam leaves? How many generations is it going to take before this hijab becomes from a dress of modesty and is changed to a fashion accessory? How many times is it going to take? How long is it going to be before charity was given from the onset as something that we wanted to do from our hearts, but then khums is being paid only because it's a burden on our shoulders and we have to pay it? Not because it's the money of the 12th Imam and his wealth. Not that it has to sustain a welfare system in my society, but because I have to pay it. And I try and buy cars and I try and buy assets before my khums day comes, so I make sure that I don't have to pay this khums on certain wealth that I've accumulated. How long before this religion is moved from a religion that is in our hearts to a religion that is simply on our tongues and our external bodies to a certain extent? I'm not for a moment suggesting, and please listen carefully, I'm not for a moment suggesting that you and I as parents, in order to adopt ummatan wasata, this middle path that we spoke about, have to force Islam down the throat of our children. That's not what's required. Neither am I suggesting that you and I must disassociate ourselves from the society around us and not integrate, because if we integrate, then what happens to our sharia? We can only integrate if we don't wear a hijab. We can only integrate if we go to a bar. We can only integrate if we start charging interest and start dealing in those commodities and trading in those commodities which is haram. No, I'm not for a moment suggesting that. What I am saying is that we integrate, as we spoke, fully, to the extent that the red line allows us to. We have a red line. It's called the Sharia and it's based on morality. As much as we can integrate within this boundary, we integrate. We live as citizens of a country, peaceful. We actually encourage others to live peacefully as well, in harmony with other humans as well. We don't only tolerate people, we respect people. But there's a red line. That line is a line of Sharia. Unfortunately, this word is very heavy loaded today when we speak about it in public, because individuals with half-baked knowledge of Islam are given the media platform to speak about Sharia. Sharia is simple. It's dignity, it's integrity of a human being, it's morality. Isn't it strange that with every Abrahamic religion you look at, is it not true that when Adam and Eve and Adam and Hawa were brought onto this earth, they were unclothed? What did they do? In every story, in every tale you look at, the first thing they did was went to cover themselves out of shame and haya. Was it not the case? But today you see a total regression in society. Just 200 years ago, you'll find in the same country you live in, it would be a disgrace for a woman to walk out without covering herself totally. That a man would be seen as a man if he had certain dignity and clothing that was attached to him. But today if you find a woman wearing a scarf and working in a government, all of a sudden she's seen as oppressed. All of a sudden she's seen as backward. All of a sudden she's seen as somebody who cannot integrate in society. What a regression we have. Is it not in the dignity of a woman that she covers her beauty from the onlookers of other people? Or is it dignified that a man walks in the street and shows off the beauty of his wife, and a woman shows off her own beauty to other men around like vultures and wolves? Then if we don't have corruption in society, what is going to be the result? Isn't it but obvious? Islam has not dictated upon us through the Sharia that we should take a path of excessiveness. Neither has it told us to take a path of insufficiency. It's told us to take a path of moderation based upon human universal morals. That if you speak to anybody about the majority of commandments of Islam, 100% all the basic principles will be accepted by each and every moral human being. But by me not being affected, whether my child prays the salah or not, whether my child observes these social barriers of hijab or not, I dilute the faith that I provide to my child from the onset. I mold him. Don't the imams always tell other people that give me a child, give me a youngster. You want somebody to learn Islam from me? Give me somebody who's young. Why? Because I can mold them when they're young. When you give me an adult, somebody who's matured, somebody who's already set in their ways, what did the Imam say? Imam says when you teach a child, it's like engraving in stone. I'm like hitting a chisel into stone, it stays there. So, but when you teach an adult and an old person, it's like writing on water. You write the first line on water and it disappears. It's not easy to teach somebody who's old, but give me somebody who's young, and that's the responsibility that you and I as parents share. That's the only way we'll gain Jannah under our feet. It's the only way we will gain intercession of the Ahlul Bayt if we fulfill our responsibility as parents. The fear is not that I've given a diluted Islam to my child. Because somebody can say that, okay, you didn't teach this child about cheating, about lying. He'll learn it or she'll learn it as they progress in life. The fear is that I have taught my child that God is not a priority. And that's not easy to change. Because when the child becomes habituated to not asking what God desires of them before they do any action, then it only gets worse and closer to destruction. That God will never be a priority in this child's life. It doesn't matter what God wants. What matters is what I believe to be correct. What matters is the part of the religion that I feel is practical for me to practice in the society that I live in. What matters is that part of the religion that is conducive in allowing me to achieve my goals, which are built on my desires. I no longer look at this religion as a religion of what God wants me to be, but I look at it as what I want God to allow me to be. It's a total misconstruing of the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where are these people who stand up and say on the day of Ashura every year, رِضًا بِقَضَائِهِ وَتَسْلِيمًا لِأَمْرِهِ? Where are those individuals who stand up in front of Imam Al-Hussain when they go to Karbala and they say the same words that he said to Allah, and they direct it towards Allah, and they say, رِضًا بِقَضَائِهِ, oh Allah, I'm pleased with your qada and your decree. رِضًا بِقَضَائِهِ وَتَسْلِيمًا لِأَمْرِهِ, and I'm submissive to every command that you make. Where are those people today? How many of people say it and how many of people practice it? What about those individuals who look towards Karbala every Thursday at the least and tell the Imam in the ziyarah, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum fa'afuza ma'akum. If only, oh Imam, if only I had the ability and the chance and the life that I was alive in the time that you were standing in Karbala on the day of Ashura, then I would have been one who would have given my neck and put it on the line before yours. How can that individual who says this sentence of great weight prove it to the Imam in the 21st century? I'll prove it to you, O Imam. I'll prove it to you by doing what? By not caring about my children. I'll prove it to you by, O Imam, by allowing my children and facilitating for them to move out of this religion. That's how I can prove to you that I'll put my neck on the line. If I can't uphold simple principles of Islam today, do you really think that if I was alive in 60, 61 AH, that I would be riding my horse towards Karbala or away from Karbala? Then would I have taken the covering of the night to run away when I knew that death is now going to be certain, that I'm not there for war booty, I'm not going to live, my desires aren't going to be met? Which direction would I have been going in? An individual who doesn't care about the law of God today would not have cared about the law of God if he was alive on the day of Ashura. This is how we vigilate ourselves. This is how we look upon ourselves. This introspection, it's here right now. You want to be a companion of the 12th Holy Imam? Then if I can't uphold the law of God right now, what use am I to the Holy Imam when he reappears?